20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Right now, it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking Time for Hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to Time for Hemp all around the world on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Roku TV. Anywhere where they make a sound on the internet, we are found on the internet. And remember, Time for Hemp is like a good joint. It's always best when you share it with your friends. And I want you to get your friends around the computer today and share this MP3. We're going to be learning some good things about growing, and we're going to be learning about how to find some great information in the movement, and we're going to be making new friends today on the broadcast. This is our first visit with this guest. We also have as the joint host today a member of our family, Darryl Cotton, who's been with us for about almost 5 years now. I think Darryl's been with the Time for Hemp family. We appreciate his support. And also I want to remind people that it's important to get active and be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Good morning, Darryl.
Good morning, Casper. Thanks for having me on again. 5 years. Why? My gosh, how time flies.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But I can't wait to see what the next 5 year brings. You know, we're really seeing some changes and improvements in the industry. A lot of cool products, more people growing, more people participating in our whole farm to fork concept. It's great. I love it. And the laws are getting, they're making a little more sense.
And I'll tell you, one of the things that has really helped is that we have people like today's guest that has made it a point to bring wonderful things to the movement, like an informational point where people can get information about growing and different dispensaries and shopping within the movement. And, I'm not going to talk about that. We'll let our guest talk about that. And, Darryl, I'll let you introduce our joint guest today to our joint audience.
Well, thank you very much, Casper, again. And today we're lucky to have Kelly on. And Kelly
Martin.
You're with Canifo and Decline 420. Those are your two websites that people can find what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about, what you bring to our industry?
For sure. I've been involved in the industry for, I want to say about 40 years, but I don't want to date myself too much here. Just recently, I've been a grower for many years, and I decided I wanted to get involved in the ancillary side of things, so I started a nutrient and cocoa-based grow medium company out of Oregon here, Decline 420. What I've found, Darryl, through the years of being involved in the industry, being an advocate, and being involved in the business side of things, is that people were constantly asking me for information, and I was more than happy to provide any what I would deem accurate information to those people. It's not quite like it was back in the old days where everybody, coveted the information and didn't want to share because it was real hard to come by and it was a little competitive black market out there. But times have changed and people are sharing and caring, and it's a good thing. So with that being said, it took up so much of my time and effort and energy helping a lot of these people that I decided to develop a online cannabis resource directory that I feel is one of the largest on the web right now. So we're pretty aggressive. We want to be the Google, the Amazon, the Craigslist, and the Facebook of cannabis, all on one platform. So we've definitely got a lot of data that we've included in this website. So I'd be happy to talk. I'm going to, I know you want to ask some questions, and I don't want to take up all kinds of time because this thing is such a monstrosity. But briefly, briefly, our main categories on the site are, we've got a strain index that has over 8,000 strains indexed right now that can help growers determine what may be best for them, what medical patients might deem best for their medical needs, and where you may be able to actually locate these particular strains on a national and international basis. We do have a dispensary locator that has over 7,000 dispensaries located nationwide right now. We've got a very extensive growing segment where people can diagnose a problem with their plants, learn anything from indoor, outdoor, greenhouse, light depth growing. We try to compile the best up-to-date information we can on that. We've got a shopping network where people can place products on our shopping line, and it's kind of like a Amazon of cannabis, let's say. We've got a social platform where people can get involved socially. We've got a news segment, which we're very happy and proud to have Time for Hemp as one of our RSS feeds that come into our news section. So we've got all the latest and greatest up to news information on the site. We've got business information for businesses trying to enter into the site, whether you're a consultant, a construction person, you do media marketing, whatever. We've got a huge business segment. Legal, if you're looking for laws, whether they're city, state, federal, or looking for legal assistance, we can help you there. And then just a ton more with pets and cannabis, women in cannabis, hemp-related information. So it's just a monstrosity. And when you want to get into asking any of the database type questions, I've got Josh, my lead programmer, joining us as well. But I'll go ahead and let you talk for a minute, Darryl, because like I said, I can go in hardcore on this. It's a
to all our guests, I mean, what we're hearing from Kelly is you've been doing this a long time, so you saw a need for just a central database that would, as you said earlier, be a resource and sort of like a one-stop shop where you can do social interaction, do a little educational background on the strains that you're considering and where to find them and so on. Very nice to have all that. So as I look at the Cannafo.com site, and that's CANNAFO.com, it's very well built. It's easily navigated. There's a ton of good information on there. But let me ask you, based on as many years as you've been doing this, do you get into some of the laws and where you see local and national politics going that are driving this industry into a more mainstream acceptance?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and absolutely. And I just got back from a 10-day road trip back east to the eastern states. My daughter goes to NYU, and I took the wife and the daughter. I flew over, rented a car, and it was her spring break, and I thought, you know what? I want to go travel the East Coast a little bit, and I actually hit 35 hydroponic stores in 5 different states. I hit Connecticut, Mass, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And so to answer your question, it was quite an education to hit these East Coast states that have medical laws on the books versus the West Coast where I'm from and California where you're from. I think that we're on the medical side and even on the rec side of things, just general cannabis information and growing knowledge and techniques, I would say we're 3 to 5 years ahead of the East Coast in available information, and not that they don't have the same type of products that we do on the West side to be able to grow cannabis and stuff, but there hasn't been as many people involved in the movement on the East Coast as there has on the West Coast for what's happened in the last, let's say, 7 or 8 years for sure. So yes, I'm actively involved in always trying to learn what's going on a national level, and I keep up to speed with all the news feeds that I have on Cannafo as well. But It's a big part of the industry, and people that are involved, especially on a business level, should be aware of what's happening, not just in their region, but outside regions as well.
And I think with mainstream media, we're getting an increase in the number of covered stories that include cannabis-related topics. But it always seems like there's this slant that says, although it's a nascent industry and it's gaining more acceptance in terms of its medical qualifications, you're given these snide little backhanded remarks about, how this was a home grower and growing his own meds, and he was shut down because he wasn't one of the licensed cultivators and so on. I really feel that as a website like Canafo goes, and others that are out there developing, so we know where our politicians stand, because one of the things that we really have to look for is who we're voting for, who we're electing, and what we can expect out of them to try to, move this nascent industry into a more mainstream acceptance. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, and we do have, even on Canafo.com, we have a section related to politics, and over in the news section, MJ Business News is probably they keep the best, in my opinion, up-to-date national news on a very unbiased opinion, but just basically straight to the story, what's happening on the legislative levels and advocacy levels, and even on the business side of things. So it's a great source for people. I highly recommend that source for keeping up to date on the political aspects.
And as manufacturers, I think we share a common goal in trying to make sure that anything we can do to help support activism and sensible laws and policies that would help people understand that it's important to grow your own food, to grow your own meds, to take responsibility for what you're putting in your body, to do so sustainably. That's a shared message we really all should have. As an aside, did you happen to catch this group that was in the White House just a couple of days ago and had their big smokeout?
I saw just a blip about someone got arrested, I believe, for smoking outside the White House. That was
there were
about
only two
as far
arrests,
as
and they were misdemeanors. But Adam Eininger he's the founder of DCMJ, and he's been an activist for years. But to be able to corner some politicians such as Barack Obama, who is absolutely admitted to having smoked cannabis in his youth, and
for sure
has made some comments that he would like to see it be scheduled. Let's put up or shut up, guys. Your time's running out.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it happens.
No, I love it. I love it all the way. And I had some friends that are involved in a PAC from Oregon here that actually traveled to Washington, D.C. about 6 months ago and went and met with some legislators, and we're really kind of trying to, show the support for the advocates here in the Northwest. And when he got back from the trip, he was quite disappointed, honestly, because I think that what's happening, it's just such a slow process on the legislative part of things. I mean, you look at what's happening, and it's, all the through voter measures and stuff. That's where all the action's happening, and I truly believe that it will happen, but it's a lot slower pace on that level. So.
Well, we find ourselves, getting up, and I'm at 55, and I've been doing this since 79, 1980. Growing.
Okay, hey, you and me, I'm the same age. Did you graduate in 79?
78, actually, but this is where I look today, and I almost pinch myself and I say, look at what we've managed to accomplish, step by step. And I think going forward, we should really make it more accessible for people to grow and understand that they can take advantage of this wonderful plant. But we also like to expand the dialogue, and the narrative really should be expanded, because here in California and other western states, we have historic drought conditions. So we started looking at the possibilities that people would learn to grow aquaponically, and that's with the fish water acting as the macronutrients for all the plants, not just cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Cannabis tends to fund any of these little local community gardens, and most of the gardens that you see that are community-supported agriculture, or CSA for short, generally have a problem supporting themselves because there's just not enough money generated from the traditional crops. I just think that as policymakers go, they might want to expand the dialogue to include food and making sure that more people can get into agriculture, be it at an urban or an outlying area, to help support our growing population's food needs too.
Okay. No, understood. Now, and is it a lighting company that you have, Darryl?
Indigrow is induction lighting, and we've been doing that since 2010. But we also include LED lamps that are designed to trigger certain photochemical responses. With the advantages of diodes, they're very narrow spectrum, and we know that there's certain spectrums that trigger flowering, for example. And if you accessorize as a supplement to the induction phosphors, you're able to trigger photochemical responses. Like when lights go out, you want to turn on these little 730 nanometer diodes. You run them on lithium-ion batteries. Instead of the plants taking 2 hours to relax and into a flowering state, they'll start flowering instantly when they see those wavelengths exclusively. So manufacturers bring a lot of emerging technology to the table, and this is a really fast-paced industry anyway. We're seeing plasma and ceramic metal halide and all these different lighting technologies. It's dizzying. I mean, and the claims can be overwhelming. But, it's our job as manufacturers to support what it is we build. So we run gardens, and we turn them into working gardens that people can actually see under different types of medias and growing techniques, what you could realistically expect from our products and others.
Yeah, no, I'm liking what I'm seeing in the LED arena. What's in the last, let's say, 3 years. I mean, the concept was great. They're getting there for sure. What I'm seeing out in the fields, but it's a great sustainable way. I mean, you can look back and when we were using street lamps back in the 79, 80. That's kind of what you were using. So it's great to see where it's come for sure.
Well, yeah, because it is going to come down to, what is plant responsive and what are the efficiencies that help you get there. It's, short of being outdoors where these plants have evolved under, billions of years outdoors with the sunlight, we really can't bring that type of lighting intensities and spectrums indoors and do so economically. So, one of the things that we really want to do is, now that we're coming out from under the specter of, playing hide and seek here, maybe there will be more greenhouses and possibly outdoor grows in areas that allow themselves or are eligible to do so just based on the environmental conditions. I'm a big believer in indoor, but I want to do so environmentally sustainably.
Yeah.
And our lamps do that, by the way. I mean, this is an old Tesla technology, so when there really isn't one lamp technology that hits on all cylinders, just so you know. I mean, when we hybridize 2 and even sometimes 3 technologies, it's to do so to get greater plant response and a fuller phenol profile without having to increase the wattages per square meter to the extent that it just becomes cost prohibitive. And that's kind of where I see it going with the rising utility rates and these time-of-use meters. And especially if the wholesale price of cannabis falls, you got to take a really hard look at how to maintain your cost structure, or it's just not going to be profitable.
Yeah, what part of the California are you in, Darryl? Are you in central, northern, southern? Okay,
no, we're southern.
Okay.
So, as I looked at it, I saw it as a macroeconomic profile. You also have to optimize whatever your crop production values are. And I saw, as aquaponic goes, there's some genetics that do quite well under strictly aquaponic systems, but we're only using 5% of the water of a traditional soils garden. Big believer in cocoa. I see that on your site. But I need to find cocoa that's very low in salinity. I like highly fibrous cocoa, and for us, it's because it's reusable. I mean, I love it. It's just one of the best media out there, in my opinion. So I see that is one of your lines, though.
Yeah, I've been using cocoa for probably almost 10 years, but it's come a long way, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the cocoa that's more inland is less salinity than the coastal cocoa for sure, and that's a matter of being washed and processed properly. But it's a great grow medium without a doubt. Aquaponics. I'm kind of I understand the concept. I have not used the technology, but I can see in my years and people that have asked me, and what I've seen is that it makes great sense, but I think it's just until somebody can kind of make it easy to use for the producer, it's going to be tough, because there is some science behind it.
We talk more people out of it than we talk into it because it's a commitment. You have to be there to feed the fish and monitor the systems and make sure, the happy fish will eat more, they'll be more active, they'll have babies.
But what a cool way to grow, really, if a person's willing to do it. What a cool way to grow, for sure.
You will not get a more organically pure crop no matter what you're growing. I mean, our lupulin production on our hops, when we were doing hops for the microbreweries around here, these were genetics that they knew very well from Soils Gardens, and they couldn't hardly recognize them when grown aquaponically. They just had a fuller taste. And the lupulin production's simply off the charts. And the same can be said for cannabis. When we had our Harlequins and our Cannatonics or our Fours, these high CBD strains would finish out pretty much like a hydro run, but you cannot introduce any insecticides, fungicides, or pesticides to that system because you kill the fish. So it is really the canary in the coal mine as the system goes, and the plant profile is enhanced, especially with an induction lighting system or any kind of full spectrum lighting. With high-pressure sodium, for example, you're going to be missing some of the UVB regions, and the plant's trichome productions are determined by how much UVB they see. If they see that wavelength, they try to protect themselves and develop more trichomes. So our plants look like they're covered in frost.
What are you seeing in aquaponics for the biggest, let's say, nutrient deficiencies in the actual water?
There's trace minerals you'll have to add. I mean, the biggest one being the chelated iron. BTPA chelated iron can be added. We have a mineral rock dust we import from Europe that is missing the silicon quartz crystals that would be detrimental to the fish. Their gills will start to bleed if they take that in. So we want. I mean, our MSDSs are online for that. It's called aquaponic elements. But if there's plants that do well without it, I mean, there's some genetics like our tomatoes, for example. If you look on our Facebook page, they're enormous. And some of the genetics do really well in these high nitrogen environments, and others not so well, and they need help. So we may develop something that, and I'm not taking credit for this, these are aquaculture systems all over the world now, but they're called decoupled, and you would take the fish water to another reservoir and add the trace minerals you need, silica and so on, that wouldn't be available to the plants any other way. You just don't return it back to the fish. You take it out to your Soils Gardens. I took it a little bit further, and we use the cocoa in 5-gallon buckets and do a lot of pretty much everything we do is flood and drain. And we'll flood those maybe 6 to 8 times a day, and that keeps the beneficial bacteria alive because in the bottom of each 5-gallon bucket, we run a mineral rock, a black lava rock that goes about 3 inches. And then with a series of holes, little 3-inch holes drilled around the bottom of the bucket, that water seeps in like up to 8 times a day, and then will wick up and into the plant's roots as the water levels reached in that media bed. It's just a tub, and that height is dictated by a standpipe. So it's a really elemental system. And we use semi-tractor trailer trucks, set those up and put the fish tanks underneath them. So all you're doing is pumping up, letting it go in, dropping down, split ACs. You might have some dehumidification because of the constant water in there that you'll have to do. But plant response is extraordinary.
So how long have you been doing the aquaponics?
I started working with aquaponic systems when I ran into Pentair Aquaponic Ecosystems, PentairAES.com. They actually private label our lights under their brand, and they sell them all over the world. But one of the things they wanted to do about 3 years ago was get into cannabis and understand if it's something that they could incorporate with their larger traditional commercial gardens applications. And then they kind of fell out of it, and they weren't really interested in pursuing it. So they let me kind of run with it. I asked if I could pick their brains, and they never had a problem with that. They have many advanced degree people there that were just wonderful to work with. The indoor gardens that they'll do are traditionally, like our arugula and mura and all that, are done on vertical shelves, just industrial shelving systems, and they just run water up to the top shelf and let gravity take it over down to the bottom. I took it a step farther in a more urban environment where I'd have these small underpurposed properties, and I would just say, let's start a farm there. And if you could make cannabis part of that farm, and you could kind of pipe everything over to it, but then you could secure it in a room which would, not be subject to scrutiny or, any kind of the introduction of children or what have you that would make it undesirable. Then the cannabis could be used, and especially grown in strains that might have a real purpose, and that would be the high CBD strains for those patients that needed it as a kind of a co-op type of operation. And, that really does work on an economic model. It does pay for itself, and it allows you to donate all the food to charity, which is what we do. All our food goes to the local food bank. And,
okay.
I think it's just something that, I don't take credit for it or anything, but it's just something that we can do as manufacturers, since we need to trial our equipment on anyway.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you then on what's your thoughts on the new measure that's going to, it looks like for sure it's going to probably make if it hasn't already made the ballot for 2016, that's backed by Sean Parker and those guys. Do you have any comments on that one way or the other? I know there's been a little bit of...
As far as recreational goes?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't believe that SB 643 and the other two bills that, were the triumvirate law that just passed, with 17 different licensing apparatus, I think the barriers to entry are huge. And what I like to see happen is in these more distressed urban environments and neighborhoods, the activists would come together and say, if we don't want and demand a seat at this table right now, I call it a 151 farm. It stands for a pound of cannabis for 5 pounds of food for one community. It also means, a pound of fish to 5 gallons of water for 1 square foot of media bed. Those are the things that make these work once everything's up and running and fully cycled, if you will. But the activists are looking for something to get behind. This should be it. Because if they don't get behind it, what ends up happening is the Philip Morrises and the R.J. Reynolds of the world will be selling all your cannabis and dispensing machines and vending machines of sorts. And that's where I'd hate to see it go, because the artisan grower will not have a seat at that table, and the opportunities for community economic impacts will be lost.
Okay.
So I'm behind these new laws if they are made by lobbyists and policymakers who really understand our industry. And that more often than that is simply not the case.
Well, I don't know how in tune you were. I'm sure you were in tune to what happened in Ohio there as well when that was just an absolute joke on that thing. So hopefully it was a lesson learned.
It's a pay to play. I don't think it is. Look what happened in Hawaii, though. So it's the whole pay to play.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of pay to play, we got to pay our bills so that we can play some music later in the day and keep playing this content. And after we do that, we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then we're going to pick up where we left off here at Time for Hemp. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
How would you like to have all the best cannabis info all in one place? Canafo.com is the Google, Facebook, and Craigslist of cannabis. It even has its own social media platform. Canafo.com puts the world of medicinal and recreational cannabis in one place for consumers, businesses, and growers. Canafo.com is a free service where you can find over 9,000 different strains of cannabis, shop cannabis classifieds, and much more. Canafo.com is the world's most comprehensive source for all things cannabis. Get in the know with Canafo.
Pardon, wouldn't know the time of day. Where's the first bag of green to the man, okay. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Feeling the breeze, looking at trees, watching for a pie in the sky. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Sat in the slow lane, watching it all go by. Well, since a hairy mister kissed my little sister, didn't get to school on time. Took it to the teacher, says he couldn't reach her, plays the music in her mind. Don't get to no classroom till 9:30. And she was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Heard the tunes, sniffing the blues, beginning to wonder why. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Sat in the slow lane, watching it all go by. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. She wasn't feeling the breeze. She wasn't looking at trees and watching for a pie in the sky. She was cannabis high. Well, she was cannabis high. Sat in the slow lane, watching the world go by. Well, Mr. Hoity-Toity drove his little doity on around the Byron Bay. Came across an Indian, thought it was a Simban. Hoity-Toity ran away. Well, she got back home round noon on the following day. And she was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Living a dream out, rolling the green and gazing at the blue, blue sky. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Sat in the slow lane, watching it all go by. Yeah, she was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Feeling the breeze, looking at trees, beginning to wonder why. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Sat in the slow lane, watching the world go by. Yeah.
You are listening to Time for Hemp all around the world. That was Cannabis High by Green Fever. And you can go to their Facebook page and let them know that you heard about them here on the big broadcast. We are on the program today with Kelly Martin, and we are learning all kinds of groovy things about the things you can learn about in the cannabis movement by going to his website. We also have Indigrow on with Darryl Cotton. Good morning, gentlemen. I tell you, it rocks to have the both of you on. We are learning so much in your joint chat. So much so, I'm going to just enjoy my joint here in the joint. Don't forget, anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, nearly 2.5 million people all
Casper,
around the
you've been
world
doing this so
pack
long,
their
you
pipes,
deserve a rest.
their bongs, and their papers all, and hit them from all around the world. Well, I'll just shut up and let you guys chat.
Cool. Hey, thanks again
Right
for
on.
having us. Kelly, you mentioned during the break, you have your program on. His name's Josh, right?
Yeah, Josh Pardee, and real quick intro to him is that he writes a bunch of different code, and he can talk a little bit more about that, but had a friend of mine that brought in a project that he was participating in, which was a electronic coupon project that he had developed a website for it. And they were scrambling, trying to raise money, and this other friend of mine was pitching the product to me, and And I looked at it, and I was real impressed with what they had done, but I was so involved in my own projects, I was like, I can't go there. But Josh, I asked him, I said, have you ever done anything in the cannabis arena? And he said, I built a social media platform like 5 years ago called Hazebook, and it went off the chart. It just blew up so quick that they were young kids when they did this thing, and it was kind of a little early in the game, and they got a little scared because it was a little out there, right? And so I looked at the site and I said, you know what, it's a little too far left for me. I'm looking for something more mainstream business. But he said, Kelly, if you think about it, I can help you build it. And so that's where Canifos kind of come from. So with that being said, I'll introduce Josh Pardee, my lead programmer on the Canifos site.
How's everyone doing?
Hi, Josh. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Nice to have you on. So you started Hazebook. That was your site?
Yeah, it was hazebook.net, and as Kelly expressed, it was just it was basically the Facebook for stoners, and when I say stoners, I mean literally stereotypical, like Kelly said, really, really left field.
But you had a following.
Yes, it is true. We we built the site, and we tried to just get some beta users at first to just see what was broken across the network, and before we knew it, a friend told a friend who told a friend, and it started to get out of control, and it was like, all right, well, we're not even to a funding phase or anything yet. We were just building a concept, and so unfortunately we had to shut her down, but we got some amazing research into it, that's for sure.
Great experience. And then you took on the Canifo project with Kelly?
Yes, yeah. So then, like Kelly had expressed, we met each other through a mutual friend, and I've been programming ever since I was 14 years old, and I know a handful of programming languages. I'd say about 12 of them, and they're definitely like knowing a foreign language, and with the diversity of the different codes that I came across, Kelly had kind of pitched the general concept of what Canifo was going to become in the end result, and it was definitely something that I was like, the sky's the limit. If we can think of it, we can program it, and this really sounds like a great idea, not just in the business aspect as far as, because it's all about, of course, being able to proceed forward and make profits and exist, but beyond that, just the advocacy level and the helpfulness and just really giving back to the cannabis community. I think that was probably one of the biggest things that caught my attention with Kelly's idea.
Definitely. Well, this is wonderful that you guys came together, because it does take diverse talents to bring anything of real value to the industry, and you guys are doing that in spades. I see that. So Canifo, what your other site is Dakine 420. Can you tell us, is that the product side? Dakine 420?
Yeah, I'm going to interject for a real quick second, and then I'll let Josh take it. But I was going to say it's actually Dakine, and that is a Hawaiian slang word that means like the kind, the best, high quality. So it's basically a Hawaiian slang word that I threw a 420 on the end of it and came up with Dakine 420. So just wanted to clarify that. But yes, Josh, I had somebody else build that particular website, but then Josh came in and did some things to that as well he can tell you about.
It's a really nice compliment, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I just manage and maintain Dakine now. As Kelly had brought up, somebody else had actually built that website from the ground up. Pretty basic e-commerce site with it that carries all of the products that the manufacturer level Dakine does. We actually have a couple of different versions of the site too. We do have a dealer portal that allows for these retail hydro shops and big growers to actually have a login and be able to do all of their ordering on the internet, and it's all got dynamic pricing based upon where they sit within the totem pole with Dakine. And it's pretty cool and advanced. It has its little features that definitely make it pretty sweet. For example, if Kelly gets a new client, a new hydro shop anywhere, the moment that the sales guys enter in that new client, we have a retail location finder, so you can pull up the U.S. state by state, and you can find all the hydro shops that Dakine 420 is found in. And that's an example, just in automatic real time, the moment the sales guys add them to it, they start showing up on the map. And we've got a couple of cool little things in that site.
I had heard earlier, and I hope I'm not misinterpreting this, but was there a portal or a way that you could ask the grower and get pretty much almost real-time responses in terms of using your products and what conditions you might be seeing in your plants, and then somebody there would be able to mention that maybe you have too much nitrogen or whatever the case may be? Is that part of it? Not on
Dakine 420. Certainly within Canifo's domain, definitely within our social network. So we essentially have our own social network built into Canifo. We call it Canifo Social, but it's you imagine basically Facebook, but just completely geared towards the cannabis industry, and it's a place where like-minded individuals can ask each other questions, help each other work towards goals. So Canifo Social would definitely be a great place to do something like that.
As I peruse the site, you're right. Yeah, it's really diverse and reaches a lot of different platforms, I see.
Yeah, and we do actually have our own search engine too, and just right on our homepage, we do kind of go out there a little bit on a whim. You'll see that when you load the homepage, our search engine says "Ask our system anything." Canifo delivers, and we do take pride in the sole purpose of Canifo, broken down really simple, is no matter what dot A is and dot B is, if they're related to cannabis, we want Canifo to connect the dots for you. And so just right there on the homepage, our search engine, that's a great place to ask a question too. You're not going to get an exact, a person-to-person response, but you'd definitely be surprised when using the entire internet as a resource. Someone's probably already taken the time to ask the exact same question as you somewhere in a forum, and there's probably already people that have responded. So why wait for a response?
That's true. Now, I think, Kelly, you had mentioned that you put in some cross-referencing search engines. When I go trying to do a genetic search, I can be led down a number of different cross-sections of genetics that would come to that particular search. Can you tell us a little bit about how you structured that?
Yeah, Josh, why don't you intervene here? And he's talking about the strain index and how they can cross-reference and if they are looking for that particular strain and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so first of all, our strain index, beyond the fact that it's got over 7,000 strains in it, we also take a pretty intense care to categorize all of that data. All of that data has been a massive compilation of what already exists in the world. It's OG Kush has been around for quite some time. It's definitely nothing new. But so to get our strains, we did a massive crawl, essentially, of everything out there on the internet and tried to compile as many as we could possibly find. Every day we're always adding new strains, of course, as new strains are coming out. But that's how we ended up getting our strains. And then when you go to the strain index, so you can search by the name, if you know the exact name, but we actually give 4 other level of criteria that the user can search for. So they can search by a condition, a symptom, a mood, or a flavor. And it gets pretty deep because they can actually set all 4 of those criteria or any combination. So they can actually be picky, and they can go in and say, okay, well, I've got anorexia, and so I need a strain that's going to make me eat, and it can't make me nauseous, so I keep that food down. You kind of get the point. We can target exactly what medically they're going to need from that strain. And then once they actually get their list of strains that meet all their criteria, then the amount of information that our strains hold is just substantial. So we've got all the obviouses as far as let's just kind of describe the strain. Let's, talk about whether it's an indica sativa hybrid, maybe some photos. But then we begin to get even trickier, so this was kind of your question, we start to mix systems together. So we give you the availability to check to see if the strain is available near you, and you can see where that's just a cross-reference between our dispensaries and what they have to offer. And then you can also check to see if you can find seeds or clones for this strain. Again, we have our clones and seeds finder, and we're just reconnecting the dots and pulling in another search engine into everything. We collect the parents, the children of the strain. Those can be a little bit touch and go on getting a hold of that data. We go over symptoms that the strain will help with. As far as a graph, it will explain all of the different symptoms that it will help with, and not only just tell you, okay, well, this helps with stress, but it's also going to show you a graph and give you an idea from a 0 to a 100% scale of how well it's going to help you with your stress. The graphs begin to kind of dynamically change based upon what users are saying that the strain is doing. So it's not always going to be the same. We do have to kind of keep a calculation of, if this strain claims it makes you tired, but we get a user that reviews and says, hey, it really made me really uplifted. Not that we want to throw that data away, but it needs to be added into the mathematics of how that graph is going to end up going. But symptoms, mood, flavors will help them determine what negative effects the strain will do. We go into grow information. If we have some, give them an idea that they're going to grow this strain, what its flowering days are, average yields. We let growers leave notes for other growers. And then we even connect into to a service by Bud Genius, and this one's actually really cool. So as we all know, not all strains are going to be created equal, and not all growers are going to be created equal. And we wanted to give our users an idea of what an average THC test that they could get from this strain if they decided to grow it. So we hook into Bud Genius, and what they do is they keep a cataloged record of testing facilities and what's getting tested nationwide through all the testing facilities. So we're actually able to pull about 5 to 10 test results for that strain that you're looking at, and you can get an idea of what your average test results are. Some guys are going to grow some at 20s and 17s and 15s, but by the time you take a look at, 5 to 10 of them, you can get an idea of, okay, this is this strain's average. And then finally, of course, if you are a consumer on the Canifo network, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to write a review for the strain as well, so we even do consumer reviews. But to just give you an idea, strains are even a small portion of what Canifo has to offer, but that gives you an idea of how each individual item, we really try to go deeply in depth and really give you as much information as we possibly can.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think what you've done here is amazing. And how long has this site been up, Josh?
Well, we had our beta version, and so we probably did about, I would say, the better part of a year of building and really honing it in. We let a beta version go off and run for, I think, about 3 months so we could get some analytic ideas. The site that you're currently seeing right now has only been up for a month.
It's phenomenal. The amount of work that went into this and the resources that are here, just based on what you're describing and what I'm toggling through, is extraordinary. Well done.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been quite a project.
Oh, yeah. And you're never done.
Right. And if there's one thing the consumers listening could take from this, me and Kelly, we worked really, really hard on all this because we just want you to be connected. We want you to have a question and find an answer if it's related to cannabis, period.
And I would like to make one shout out too, because these guys were very, very helpful in sharing their data, and that's cannabis reports.
Yeah.
They allowed us to actually use a bunch of their data that they've been compiling for a number of years, and they share it. They're big advocates. They want the information out there. They want to help people, and just a great group of people. And so I thank them very much for them helping us with our project too.
Glad to hear
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Well, you got to have a good team, and it sounds like you two, the planets were aligned when you met.
Thank you, Darryl. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for all those developers out there that when Leafly shut down their developer options, Cannabis Reports has definitely they've got their hands on quite a bit more data, and they're just a lot. They're more like me and Kelly are. They're really trying to take this information, and they want to see things like Canifo branch off of that, or cool app ideas, and they're out there to definitely help you get access to information like Canifo is, and build your own projects and put back into the cannabis community, and that's wonderful. So definitely check them out.
Why do you think Leafly dropped the developer options?
It's definitely just it's a control. They have their data set, and it's just a matter of they want them to be the only people that have their data set. And as we all know, it's actually kind of sad because, as we kind of talked about with strains, it's like all those strains already exist. It's nothing new. They're all out there to find as it is if you do enough research. And then the other facet that Leafly's got is dispensaries, and you can access your state office to get a list of all the legitimate dispensaries. So that's not even that hard to get a hold of either. And really, they're just kind of, in my opinion, burning bridges by being a little bit stingy with it.
Yeah, I mean, they are a hell of a resource, but if they're going to limit access and development, then it's groups like yours and sites like yours that'll obviously take advantage of that.
And I can definitely see there's a big need to protect interest when it comes to like their reviews, for example. Those are organically generated from their website between them and their followers, and that's something that I can't blame them at all for not wanting to share. All of their data they've obtained through their consumers. But again, a lot of the API option that they were offering was a list of strains or a list of dispensaries, and it's those things really aren't that hard to come by. So I think it just kind of, like I said, it shows where they're sitting at, where how much they really want to actually help the cannabis community.
Not to take this off topic, but I like when programmers get involved with the industry people, and that we can find ways to better manage our products. And we started taking Arduino boards and using a GUI interface to optimize how many photons those plants see every day. And once you know what they'll do outdoors, then you can convert those dynamics indoors or through greenhouses. And we just have a little GUI screen that allows us to set the value of what we would want to see in a relative value per day. And with the sunlight doing the heavy lifting and whatever supplemental lighting is necessary, it's important that we as manufacturers don't miss those opportunities to take advantage of code and software that will help optimize crop production values.
Definitely, and to take something, like what you guys did, just for listeners, in case anybody doesn't know, a GUI is a GUI, a graphical user interface. So what we're talking about here is just simply taking raw data and turning it into a visual so that pretty much anybody can take one look at it and get an understanding immediately. And, as you're talking about right there, there's, to what you do, I'm sure there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of science, there's a lot going on, and to be able to,
there's a lot of data behind the scenes. But we looked at other things like the utilities now are having, obviously with the whole infrastructure of the power grid being tested to its greatest extremes, and we're really not building any more nuclear or power plants in general. Coal's being phased out. We have to take advantage of using our power systems with an eye on sustainability and economy.
Definitely.
So with these controls like we're talking about, you're able to do so for the indoor grower, who historically has been, over 100 watts per square foot. And if you just do the math and you add that up to the average grow room or the above average grow room, there's things out there that the utilities offer, like automated demand response. Like, let's say you have a brownout condition coming up and you want to lower the loads just so that the utility can get through that. You're eligible as a large grower to go after those partnering agreements with the utility, and there are controls out there that interface the utility and let you do that without sacrificing your crop.
Yeah.
That's very
important. And all of it, it's all a result of cannabis technology, and I definitely, I'm really, really, really interested as a programmer and a tech guy to see where it goes. One thing that we've definitely seen is as Uncle Sam's backed off more and more, two things that I see really huge is cannabis technology raising and women getting involved, and I think it's as the risks begin to drop, you've got these guys that, if you're a computer science major and you're building software, you've probably already got a lot going on for you, to be able to take a big risk and risk all of that. I can see where it took them a little time to jump on board, but as those risks become less and less and less, you got more of these, geniuses and people that would have never been connected into the industry, and now they're willing to jump into it. And I think as we move forward, it's just going to get crazier and crazier.
The American Society for Chemists now, they have a chapter that includes extraction chemistry. So as more chemists want to get a career in extractions and specialize in that, they'll be accredited to do so. So we're probably going to see the same thing with controls and software development too.
I'd love to see it.
Oh, definitely. If you look at our website under indigrow.com, under the product side, you'll see what we call our ADR controller, and that's an automated demand response, and it's designed to work with the utility when those brownout conditions occur. Kind of let you put the white hat on.
And with that said, this is a good time for everybody to direct our audience to their website. We're down to the last 2 minutes of the big broadcast, and we'll start with our joint guest giving a direction on the big super highway called the Internet. Martin?
Well, thank
it's
you
up to
very
me.
much for...
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, too. And listen, Kelly, Josh, it was a pleasure meeting you and talking to you on the phone. Learned a lot.
Absolutely.
Today,
Pleasure's all ours.
We'll be visiting your site more. Please feel free to come to San Diego, and next time you're here, do drop in. We'll give us an opportunity to meet and give you a tour of our farm.
Perfect, and that goes this way, too. If you ever make it up to Oregon, definitely come by. I'd love to meet you and show you what we got going.
A couple times a year, so I will be visiting you. Thank you.
Perfect. I look forward to it.
And everybody make sure to hit indigrow.com, Decline420.com, Canifo.com, and Time for Hemp, right? That's right.
Good shout-out. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right,
absolutely. Thanks for having us.
And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio. Please share us with your friends.